YouTube. Trails in the Sky. We are here. I finally get to talk about this game, the game that all of my friends won't shut up about. If I had $1 for every time somebody recommended me this game, by now I'd be freaking rich. So many people love this series, and I found out why recently when I finished Trails in the Sky. This game is phenomenal. I just want to warn you guys before we jump into this review that this is a spoiler-free review, mainly because I want people to play this game. If you have not played this game before, buy this game. I will not spoil it for you here, okay? So you're safe. You can hear all of my thoughts about the game in spoiler-free fashion, but I want you to go on Steam right now. It is only $20 for this game. Sometimes Steam is having sales, so it might even be cheaper than $20. Pick up this game now, because if you're a JRPG fan, you need to have at least played Trails in the Sky, just one game. Now for the other two Sky games, moving forward, when I do more reviews of these games, we will be spoiling, okay? So if you are not caught up with the games at that time, then you probably don't want to watch those videos. Now, before we get into what made me play this game and what my thoughts are on this game, I'd love it if you guys hit that like button for me. I would truly appreciate it. This channel is smaller than my main channel, so I really want to get my videos out there. It would really help me out. Thank you so much. We definitely have more content coming down the pipeline in the future, so you might want to stick around. Now, with all that being said, let's talk about my thoughts on Trails in the Sky. Now, I'd like to begin with how I found out about Trails in the Sky. I had some viewers tell me about the Cold Steel games about 3 to 4 years ago. They said, "The Trails series is phenomenal. It has world building you've never seen before. You have to check it out." Obviously, when you guys recommend me games, I always have to check them out because you guys have not led me astray yet. But when it came to Cold Steel 1, I feel like you kind of did, because I picked the game up on PS4. I did one 4 to 5 hour long stream of the game, and honestly, I was not impressed with Cold Steel 1. Not saying that Cold Steel 1 is a bad game per se, but the game had an incredibly slow start, which was an immediate turnoff for me. I also was just overwhelmed with the number of characters you control, along with these new game mechanics that I wasn't familiar with. I'm so used to standard turn-based combat, so when the characters start moving and such, I start to freak out. I know that I've played the Hyperdimension Neptunia games, and those games kind of play like Tales, like they have a similar combat system a little bit, but I was still overwhelmed for some reason. I don't know. So in result, I never returned to the game. Lo and behold, one of my really good friends named Genma was watching that stream, and apparently he got really into it and started diving into the Trails series himself. Fast forward a couple years later, and he's caught up with the series at this point. So recently on my birthday, Genma gifted me Trails in the Sky on Steam. He said, "Man, start here. You're gonna love it." Not gonna lie, I was a little hesitant to play this game, but at this point, the game is in my Steam library, right? So I was like, hey, it's free of charge. I have nothing to lose. And let me tell you, once I booted this up, I did not want to put it down. So before we get into my thoughts on the actual game itself, I know that I'm talking to two different audiences. People who are Trails fans and have already played the game, and people who haven't played the game yet, but want to hear my opinion on the game before they buy it and play it for themselves. So for the people who haven't played the game yet, let me give you a brief summary of what's going on in Trails in the Sky. The game has us following our protagonists Estelle and Joshua Bright, who are kids that are training to become bracers. Now, the Bracers Guild is a collective of civilians who are to protect the people of their region. They aren't the army, and although people do have to pay for their services, they aren't technically mercenaries either. They're kind of in between the two, which can be kind of confusing to think about, but hey, stick with me here. Upon becoming junior bracers, their dad, who's also a bracer, gets assigned to a mission. Their dad leaves, and a day or two later, we find out the airship he was flying on goes missing. So Estelle and Joshua's journey starts here. We have to find their dad. And on top of that, there's gonna be twists and turns along the way, and of course, they want to become senior bracers too. It's your typical JRPG story, okay? But it is done very well. I want to begin by saying Estelle is a phenomenal main character. I am a huge sucker for female protagonists, especially in JRPGs. You don't see that much. So the few that we have got out there, we have to appreciate them. Something that my friend Genma was telling me is that Estelle is said by fans to be kind of like your typical shonen anime protagonist. I definitely see what people are talking about, but I feel like she's not as naive as, like, let's say a Naruto or a Goku. She has a little bit of brain to her. And In my opinion, she feels more so sheltered, like a daddy's girl. She's a very optimistic girl who's socially awkward. You know, it seems like she hasn't interacted with many people outside Joshua and her dad, so she doesn't really know how to be a girl, you know what I mean? She's grew up in this little small town, she's a tomboy, things like that. But I mean, it leads to a lot of cute, wholesome, and sometimes very awkward moments that you encounter throughout the game. It's funny to see Estelle go off the walls at times because this girl is crazy, let me tell you. And Joshua, her brother's like, hey, you're at a 10. Let's bring it down to a 2. Their relationship is so great. You're gonna love it throughout this game. They are funny. Now, Joshua is the brains of the operation. He is the adopted sibling, so they're not technically like blood related, but they've kind of grown up together. He keeps Estelle in check while also protecting her, kind of like a big brother. That's very cute. This game forces you to love these two characters. You get a lot of one-on-one time with Estelle and Joshua. Now, unlike other JRPGs, the party members in this game swap in and out as you progress through the story. So just as you start to love this new party member you got, or party members that you got, they leave you a few hours later. It sucks, especially sometimes with the gameplay, because you'll end up with just having Estelle and Joshua and it feels like you need to have a full party. But here you are, Estelle and Joshua having to take out like a whole squad of enemies, sometimes even boss fights. And it's like, oh my God, it can be overwhelming at times. But story-wise, it pays off in the end. Trust me. Now, one of the gripes you're gonna hear about this game a lot, and you might also notice it when you play the game for yourself, is the game has a slow start, a very, very slow start. My advice to you guys, if you're jumping into it, if you've never played a Trails game before, hang in there and pay attention to everything. I have never played a JRPG where everything feels like it has a purpose. Every NPC you talk to, every side quest you complete, every piece of dialogue in this game freaking matters. It's insane. And by the end of the game, there's a huge payoff, like I said earlier. Nothing felt like filler in this game, and that's saying a lot for a JRPG because this genre of games is normally known for its filler. I've played a lot of JRPGs where there's just random NPCs, there's really no reason to talk to them. The side quests feel like they're just fetch and grab quests and they don't really matter to the story at all. But this game is not like those games at all. Now, I am an avid visual novel fan, so I'm used to playing games with long introductions or build-ups. Hello, Danganronpa, and also hello, Fatal 12. For example, in Fatal 12, I had to read about a girl making coffee. Like step by step, I read about this girl making freaking coffee in the beginning of the game. And it was written in the most elaborate way possible. I'm like, can we get to the freaking story? Like, what is happening right now? Get to the point. Where's the story start? It doesn't get any slower than that, let me tell you. So Trails was nothing for me. But I think you guys get the point. This game has a very long start. I wouldn't be surprised if someone were to drop this game before chapter 2. I would not be mad at you. This game is not for everyone. Now, chapter 2 is my favorite chapter in this game. So if you can hold out, if you could just hold out and play chapter 2 from start to finish, you might actually enjoy the game. Honestly, upon completing chapter 2, I feel like that is the point where you can decide if this game is for you or not. Now, where the game kind of fell off for me is chapter 3. Chapter 3 worried me. Now, let me explain. So the way that this game handles side quests is you have to complete these side quests before you advance the story at certain points. So if you advance the story too far and forget to do the side quests, you are therefore locked out of the side quests and can't go back to finish them. Now, the way that chapter 3 is structured, the game throws a ton of side quests at you at one point, and you pretty much just have to do them right there and then. And these side quests are not fun at all. You are going to be playing a lot of hide and seek with items, traveling the map, going up and down floors, looking for specific people. I had a bad time. I had absolutely no problems with the side quest system in this game until chapter 3. Thankfully, the final chapter had a minimal amount of side quests, so I was okay with that. But even my friend who was streaming the game alongside me said he probably would have dropped the game at chapter 3 if he wasn't streaming it. So I'm kind of glad I wasn't alone in my opinion on this. I kind of want to know how you guys felt about it. So let me know in the comment section down below. Did you have any issues with chapter 3 personally? Maybe I'm just whining. Maybe my friend is also just whining too. Maybe we're just babies. I don't know. But I wasn't feeling chapter 3 side quest wise. Now, I am not knocking chapter 3 completely and saying that it was a horrible part of the game and that I just hated it so much and I had a bad time. No. Chapter 3 was great story wise. I was having a lot of fun with that. It was just the side questing wasn't fun at all. That's all. Another downfall I had with this game isn't necessarily an isolated issue with this particular game, but a lot of JRPGs do this with their final dungeons. The enemies in the final dungeon are just really boring to fight. They were tanky and just not fun to look at. Their designs were just very samey. I felt like the last dungeon in this game could have been a little bit better, but I will admit the final boss definitely did make up for it, so I won't complain about it too much. I'll just leave it at that. Final dungeon, not the best. Something I wasn't expecting is Trails also deals with some interesting political themes that you would see series like Persona tackle. I don't want to go into too much depth about it because it would be spoiler territory, but one of the more interesting topics the game subtly touches on is the discrimination of women. As I mentioned before, the main character Estelle is a girl and she occasionally gets jabbed by men saying that she's not girly enough. A lot of NPCs talk about it. Some story characters talk about it too. It's very interesting to see all of the jokes that get cracked at her. But the game is like, no, you can be a girl and still do boy thing. That girl power, of course. It's not a big part of the game, so don't worry about that. It's just nice to see that the topic is talked about somewhat. There's other social issues that the game tackles, but that was just one that stood out to me. Now, one thing that might bother some people who play this game, and for me, it was a little awkward, is the love story that this game has. It's a little hard to wrap your head around at first. You gotta remember, this is a Japanese game, so obviously the way they see things doesn't always align with us Westerners. Like the way we think is a lot different sometimes. It didn't necessarily bother me because I was just like, okay, I know that this is a Japanese developer, I get it, but I do feel like there are going to be some people out there who play this game that are going to critique it and say some things about it. I just want to warn you guys, it might not be your cup of tea. That's why I'm bringing this up in the review. Some people just might not be about that. I'm personally not going to give this game a minus because of it, but I just wanted to mention it. Also, can I just say that the characters you meet in this game are all so freaking lovable? Everyone you meet, you will fall in love with, guaranteed. I sound like a used car salesman right now. I'm guaranteeing it. You will fall in love with these characters. My favorite characters in this game are Olivier and Tita. I'm praying to the gods right now that I'm going to get to see both of them in the second game in SC because they are freaking great. It'd be so awesome to see Tita like maybe a little bit older or something like that. And Olivier is just so freaking funny. Oh my God, a clown, a literal clown. I don't know how canon it is, but it does seem like the game kind of touches on something LGBTQ about Olivier a little bit. Some of the things that he says, I'm like, oh, are you saying that you might swing both ways? You know what I mean? Like, you never know. That totally caught me off guard. I was not expecting that. Now let's talk a little bit about the gameplay in Trails in the Sky. Now this game has a grid-based combat system, which I'm not used to, and it originally scared me to even try the game because of it. But the combat is actually really fun and pretty easy to learn if you give it some time. So of course you have your traditional magic skills, which they call arts in this game, and on top of that, your party members are able to use their own exclusive attacks called crafts. When you finish an attack, you gain CP, which is used to dish out one of your special craft moves or unleash a super attack called S-Breaks. Now, some craft moves debuff, buff, heal, deal damage, interrupt enemy arts, etc. I personally didn't use any crafts until the final dungeon and boss fight. I went through the entire game mainly using arts. I was a beast with the Orbmit system. The Orbmit system, if you learn it, you can break this game. Now, your arts and also your crafts that your characters are going to have are determined by your Orbmit setups. You get these gems called quartz that kind of remind me of Materia in Final Fantasy VII if I wanted to compare it to something familiar for the potential buyers out there. Hopefully you guys at least played Final Fantasy VII. If you haven't, then now I'm going to feel stupid. Each quartz represents a certain element like water, wind, earth, and more. Some quartz might heal, increase attack, increase range, deal a status effect to the enemy, etc. Now, what makes this system unique is every quartz represents a certain amount of Sepith. Sepith is basically like the currency in this game. So if you ever want to craft like magic spells or other quartz and such like that, you're going to need to do it by gathering Sepith. Now, of course, in your Orbmit system, you're going to have to mix and match these different quartz to get stronger arts that will help you in combat. This system takes some time to learn. It's deeper than how I explained it. This is a really like bare bones explanation of it. My tips for you guys out there here is when you get this game, experiment the best that you can with it. If you still don't get it, there's guides on the internet that will tell you what quartz you should put on your characters at certain points of the game, so you don't even have to think about it. I got really good with builds late into the game, and I was just demolishing enemies with arts. I'm really curious to see how they kind of build on this gameplay in later entries, especially when we get to Cold Steel. But for this being the first game, the mechanics in this game are passable. I will say, however, I played this game on normal and I barely grinded in this game. As long as you're completing the side quests and killing every enemy in your way, you will be just fine. I also want you guys to know that this game doesn't have any random encounters, which is so great for a JRPG, especially one that is kind of older. I noticed that this game has a lot of quality of life features, like a built-in turbo mode, for instance, which speeds the game up with a click of a button, which makes grinding and navigating around the environment so much quicker. Fair warning, the animations in this game are slow. I couldn't imagine playing this game on the PSP. Wow, oh wow, it must have sucked because there was no turbo mode on the PSP. I would have yanked my hair out. Now, the animations in this game are beautiful. They definitely went in. Falcom went in when it came to the animations. I love the sprite designs and stuff. This game has an amazing art style. Love it. But they're just way too slow, man. I beat this game in about 38 hours, and turbo mode was a huge contributor to that. Without turbo mode, I probably would have been looking at maybe 45 to maybe 50 hours to complete this game. So thank you. Thank you, Falcom, for the freaking turbo mode. We needed it. Which, that feature in itself makes me recommend the PC version of this game. Buy it on PC. Don't get it on Vita or PSP. That turbo mode is essential. It is essential. It is essential. One really underrated aspect of this game I wanted to touch on is the graphics. I don't really think people appreciate graphics like this, especially nowadays. The environments in this game are beautiful, and they complement the art style of the 3D sprites so well. There's a few scenes in this game that really show how great at their jobs the animators were. They definitely did a great job getting these little chibi looking sprites to come to life at times. Yeah, the games don't look amazing, but I prefer this art style over the earlier Cold Steel games personally. Maybe I'm just old school, but Cold Steel looks very outdated, man. Now, the music in this game, oh my God. Y'all know how I am about soundtracks. The music in this game is next level. Definitely one of the more memorable JRPG soundtracks I've heard personally. I'd probably put it up there with Bravely Default. Bravely Default is one of my favorites. Like top 3 favorites. So me putting Trails next to Bravely Default, man, it's saying a lot. So the Trails music has been playing in the background of this video, so tell me what you think. If you've already played the game yourself, what are your favorite tracks in Trails in the Sky? I'd like to hear it. All right, we made it to the end, ladies and gentlemen. With all that being said, I think you guys get the gist of how I feel about Trails in the Sky. It's a great game that brought my love for JRPGs back. I think the last time I felt invested in a JRPG was when I completed Final Fantasy X like a few years ago. I was in tears after seeing the ending to Trails in the Sky. Let me tell you, it is an emotional freaking roller coaster. Like I said a couple of times in this review, there is a huge payoff at the end. Pay attention to everything. Everything matters in this game. Your time is not wasted in this JRPG whatsoever. Hopefully this review makes you want to pick up the game for yourself. And if you're a fan watching this video, hopefully you enjoyed me talking about one of your favorite series. I can't wait to dive into SC pretty soon. There will be a SC video after I finish that game. I will be streaming it on Twitch, by the way. So if you guys want to follow my Twitch channel, it will also be in the description. You could come over there on the Twitch streams and hang out with us. My expectations for SC after playing Trails in the Sky are like through the roof. They're up here. So hopefully that game delivers. Last but not least, before we end this video, go ahead and drop your thoughts on Trails in the Sky. How do you feel about this game if you've played it already? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about the game. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have an amazing day. Deuces.
Hope will never die.